All right, so in this session, Mark is going to be talking to us about starting group well, how important those first few minutes are in our group. But quick question to start. Wondering, what do you think is the role of a small group leader in terms of like hospitality, of what you might typically call hospitality? What do you think a small group leader can do or is responsible for in that realm?
Be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank everyone for coming.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Make
Smile.
it a safe place for them to feel comfortable and open up.
Yes.
Like seeing each person or making sure you talk to each person.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, don't let anybody slip in unnoticed.
Mhm.
That's good.
Right.
I think making it feel homey in any way that you can. I know sometimes that's hard if you're meeting like at the church or something. I know young adults meet in student union a lot and it
Yeah.
doesn't exactly feel like your living room, but even just bringing like something to eat or a
Mhm.
snack is always a good way to start.
I agree. Yeah, that's good. All right, Mark. Well, what do you have to tell us about starting group well?
Well, first of all, you guys got great instincts because those are all the same kind of things I think of too when I think about getting a group started well. I'll talk a little bit about like if you're getting a new group of people, that kind of group started, but also like if it's an ongoing group, just how you get each and evening started, how you get things going. So one of the first things, and you were talking about this a little bit with making the preparations right. If for the group facilitator, if you're not early, you're late. Because there's things that need preparation. So like if you're going to run the vacuum, you're going to do a quick dusting, you're going to put candles on. If you're making cookies, you're doing something. You want all that done with a little bit of time so before group starts, so you have a moment to just kind of pause and calm down. If your group is at the church building, then you want to get there early enough that you can make sure all the things you wanted are there. You got your TV, your DVD player, or a computer hookup. You got the right number of chairs. They're in the right setting. They're a circle or they're with tables, all those things. And to have enough time, if something didn't happen exactly the way you want it, that you can get hold of someone to get it fixed. And then so you have your moment to just kind of calm. And because if you're, for me, if I'm thinking and concentrating, I do it inside my head, and I forget what's happening out here. And when I'm thinking, I can look mad. And so if that's the last thing that was going through here when I opened the door, welcome to group. That's not a very good welcome, is it? So I need enough time to like kind of pause, catch my breath, and get my head in the right zone, friendly and all that. So that's what I get to greet people with. So first thing's be early. And then the second thing is greet people with a smile, and you mentioned that. Especially if it's a brand new group coming together, just people, if they're new to groups, this can be a big step. This can feel a little risky. So just to be greeted with a smile is reassuring. If an existing group, maybe you've known each other for a long time, but they had a hard day at work. Maybe a thing blew up right in their job, right? The last thing as they're walking out the door, and traffic was horrible, and they're kind of in a bad mood and got reason to be, but then they see you with a smile. And smiles are just sort of contagious, right? Mm-hmm. Someone smiles, you smile back. And it's when you're smiling, it's hard to be angry and anxious and all that other stuff, right? So if we get people to smile, it gets them in a good headspace, get ready for what's going to happen. Small talk, make small talk. And again, if it's a new group of people just starting, there's maybe people who are a little unsure about this. It's their first group, and so they're nervous. And silence magnifies nervousness. And it sort of magnifies it exponentially per every person in the room who's sitting there, and there is silence. The silence gets louder the more people show up. So just making small talk. And maybe I keep some questions in my hip pocket. How was your day today? How was work? How was the traffic? Did you get stuck in traffic? How long you been coming to church? You've been coming for a while? Just some things that I already have in my mind and that I can use to just get the discussion going. And even if a person's nervous and they're not engaging in the small talk, it's still relaxing just hearing the small talk going on. It just has a calming effect. So I want to break and make this kind of side comment that a portion of you, likely, maybe half or a little more, are thinking to yourself, seriously, you had to tell me to smile and make small talk? Of course you're going to smile and make small talk. Do you think we're idiots or what? Of course you're going to do that. And that subgroup of you is more than likely extroverts. And you've never met a stranger, and you could chat up a light pole, and that's just what you do. You couldn't imagine life being any different. Another portion of you, maybe slightly less than half, are thinking, oh, that's good, smile. I should write that down. We've got to remind myself smile. And starter questions, oh, that's brilliant, because making small talk, that's like on the level of getting dental work done with no Novocaine. Like, I hate that. And so the learning to extrapolate from that is some parts of as when we're going through this training, you're going to go, well, that's easy. That's easy. I don't even know why they're telling us that. Of course you're going to do that. And there's going to be some parts that are going to be hard, and you're going to struggle. But you're going to look around the room, and some other people are having an easy time at that. So should that happen, and you're working hard for a thing, and some other people are skating by, just don't compare yourself. That doesn't help. We're all going to have some things that come naturally, and some that are just things we're going to have to work at. That's just part of it. And so if they're skating by, you're working hard, their time will come, they'll work hard, you'll skate by. It all evens out in the end. All right, so be early, smile, small talk, and then this skill, I think sometimes is a little bit overlooked, but I call it announce and invite. So at some point, like people start gathering at 7, at some point I go, well, it's 7:20. I suppose it's time we go ahead and get started. So once you gather around, if there's snacks, get your last snacks. Come on in. Get ready. We're going to start now. Now, it could be 7:15. It could be 7:30. The time doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying, oh, look at the time. It's time for us to get started now. And most people then take that cue, and they'll be getting ready. There could be someone who's just lost in telling a story to someone. And they're just midstream and they're going. And so what I do is I just wait and I smile. And I just kind of look at them, waiting for them. And what happens is as the room gets quieter, their talking gets louder till finally they figure out, I'm the only one talking right now. And then when they look up, if they see me smiling at them, they oh. So I'm not trying to shame anyone, but we just want to get group started. So it helps you to announce and invite, helps you to move from the casual to the stuff we're there to do on purpose, intentionally. Now, as we're getting into the actual work of the group, one of the first things I do is I start by clarifying the purpose of the group. And that's most important, like when it's a new group, the first couple of weeks, to say, we're going to be a 12-week Bible study. We're going to look at the Gospel of Mark. We're going to learn about the life of Jesus. Or we're going to do a marriage group. We're going to do Emerson Eggerich's Love and Respect, and we're going to learn that throughout the session. Or we're going to do Grief Share. We're going to work on processing our grief and moving forward. So you give just, and it doesn't have to be much detail. But what we're doing here is we're painting a picture to replace the unknown. Because until we give something, the unknown is in people's minds. And what do we do with the unknown? We fill it with the worst possible scenario, right? They're probably going to make me share my deepest, darkest secret, and I'm probably going to do it wrong, and I'm going to embarrass myself. Oh, why have I done this? Why have I got myself in this? Is it too late to get up to the door? And, we don't know. So we just give them a picture real quick. This is what we're going to be about. And they hear that, and they go, oh, well, yeah, that's what I thought in the program when I thought I'd do this group, and yeah, I think I can do that. I think that'll be fine. That helps. If it is a group where you're already you've been going, it's still valuable to state what the learning objectives are going to be. So tonight, here's the things we're going to try to accomplish. Now, if you have published material, they might even tell you what the learning objectives are. But honestly, even with published material, a lot of times I want to change it because if I haven't lived what they're talking about, it's going to be hard for me to convey it. So I'm looking for the parts that I know about and that I've got real life experience with. I'm going to do that. And sometimes they haven't even thought about the learning objectives. And learning objectives, that sounds like maybe a an education thing. You think, I don't have an education degree, I can't do learning objectives. It's just, think of it this way. You have some reason why you want these people to come spend time with you. There's something you hope is going to happen for them. You know, you've done some preparations. And it's probably going to be one or a couple of three things. That they're going to learn something. They're going to have their mind expanded. They're going to learn a new thought. They're going to have an attitude improvement. Something in their feeling is going to be improved as a result of our spending time together. Or actions. They're going to maybe come away with a skill they didn't have when they showed up. And it could be all of those things. But you think, yeah, when we're done, I hope something good in one of these areas will happen for them. And so to just kind of fill in the unknown, say tonight we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at this, we're going to look at this. And you don't have to teach it, you're just saying what it is. It's kind of like at the news, at the beginning of the news hour, they tell you what the stories are going to be. And so, you know, oh, I'm going to want to watch because I especially want to see that story. Same thing, we're just going to tell them quickly, here's what we're going to do. And so now they have a sense of purpose, a sense of context, and they're with you. And so that helps there. You're telling people what they can expect from the group, then kind of switch to what the group expects from them. And people are interested to know because people come and say, I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to embarrass myself. I want to do it right. What's the right way to do it? And so we talked a little bit in boundaries about group guidelines. And so this is where we would share the group guidelines. We say, so these are the things we do. This is how we operate as a group. These are the things we do, things we don't do. And so that gets them a sense of, oh, well, yeah, I could do those things. There's nothing there that I couldn't do. If that's what's expected of me, I'm good. I'm good. So they know what they can expect from the group. They know what the group expects from them. And people tend to relax. Now, there's two questions that really are what make the guidelines powerful and useful, and maybe very useful at a later time. We'll talk about another skill. Two questions you want to ask after you do the group guidelines. And the first question is this. Does everyone understand the guidelines? Anybody have any questions about them? Something that a word we used, language you don't understand, or why would you have that as a guideline? Any questions? We've had good questions. If you got a question, don't be shy. Ask it now. And I'm kind of looking around the room to see if anyone has a question. No one's asking. So everyone feels like you kind of understand what we're after. And I'm kind of looking for heads to nod in the front. Okay, then I'm going to ask you this question. Would everyone agree, to the best of your ability, to abide by these guidelines for the benefit of your group mates? And then what I do is I look at each person, and I'm looking for an answer, and I'm looking for a yes or a head nod, and I go all the way around, and I say, me too. So now we know that all of our group mates have made this commitment to us that this is how we're going to try to operate. And as people hear guidelines, that it kind of makes sense. This is so we can be safe. This is so we can be productive. We can accomplish something. There's a couple guidelines that's probably universal to any kind of group. Generally speaking, you have as few guidelines as you can to create safety and make sure the group is productive. And if it's like a study group, we're going to do a Bible study. You don't need a lot of guidelines. Sometimes you even call them just a group contract. And it's just, we commit to, we'll show up regularly. We'll commit to come prepared. We'll have done our reading or whatever, things like that. We don't interrupt when someone's talking. But if there's going to be more at risk, like maybe an accountability group, especially a support recovery group, or maybe someone's going to talk about deeper personal things, maybe tender things, you might have more guidelines, like we're not going to fix one another. We're going to try to have a self-focus. We're not going to talk about people who aren't in our group, who are out there somewhere. What's shared in the group will stay in the group. We'll have confidentiality, but here's limits to confidentiality. If anyone in our group ever shares having thoughts hurting themselves or someone else, we'll include other people to ensure safety. That'd be the only exception. So those are groups, guidelines that are probably common in a lot of places. That would be part of what you would share. And one last thing, once you're into the group, and you've done it at least once in multiple sessions, a skill that I think of as linking the train cars of the various lessons from week to week to week, linking them together, is I'll hook it up with the learning objectives. I'll do review last week, what we covered, and then tonight what we're going to study. And if you're thinking a review, how am I going to remember all that stuff? you're going to cheat because you already know what the learning objectives were that you set for last week. Last week's learning objectives become this week's review. And the thing about a review is you're not reteaching. You're just putting out there a reminder that trips their memory. And once their memory trips, they kind of reteach real quickly. Whatever they took away, whatever was important to them, it flashes through their mind and they go, oh, yeah, I remember that. So that's what we did last week. Here's what we're going to do tonight. And it sort of links them together. And I think it increases retention of the lessons that have recovered. And so if you get to the last night of their group, 12 weeks or whatever, you say, what did you get out of this group? Chances are someone might describe something that happened in week 2 or week 4. Because these things, they weren't isolated bits of information, but they were kind of a train, a steady stream of things. One thing led to another. So those kind of things, they increase the knowledge, the feeling, the activity. It helps set the group up to succeed and accomplish what you wanted to accomplish.
That's so good. Even in a, like if you're in your group, you're just studying a passage of the Bible, or I know you've done this in your group, Taylor, like you've listened to a podcast and you've discussed the themes of it. So even if they aren't like lessons or whatever, it's always great to say, remember last week we talked about the importance of humility in our relationships. Like tonight we're looking at this other thing. So I think that skill is important no matter what you're doing in your group.
There's still lessons that you can link together.
Yes, agreed. Any questions for Mark about starting group well?
I had one for the group guidelines. Like, do you encourage that a leader comes up with those ahead of time independently? Like, if I'm leading a group, do I kind of make those up myself and then share them? Or is it something that maybe night one you kind of have more of a conversation with the group about? Like, hey, these are some general guidelines. Do we want to add any?
Good question.
That's a great question.
So, again, depending upon the ministry, how much is at risk, how many guidelines you're going to have, how much thought you put into it ahead of time. Small group, I mean, you probably enter just a regular life group, Bible study. The standards would probably work, and you kind of have that in your mind. In a support recovery group, we have quite a few guidelines, and we already know this is what is needed for keeping the group safe. The church may have some guidelines. I say, whenever you're doing a group representing the vineyard, here's some things to keep in mind. Your pastor over this department may have some things. Well, in our ministry area, these are kind of things we got to pay attention to. And then you, as a group leader, you got to be comfortable with. But giving the group some ownership. I was doing a support recovery group, and at one point, a couple weeks in, the group said, can we have another guideline? I said, well, what is it? Can we have it like if you come late, you can't come in, you come back next week? Because it doesn't quite feel safe. People come in after we've done the guidelines, and we don't know if they'll treat us in the way of the guidelines. I said, that's a reasonable guideline. We'll add that to our guidelines. And so to help keep perceived safety, that was one the group contributed. So I think it can increase group ownership, but there may be some things that are already decided by folks who are keeping an eye of the bigger picture. We really want to have these couple of guidelines in place.
That's a great question. Yeah, good. Anybody else have a question about starting group well? All right. Well, that wraps up our module. So thank you so much for participating.